I'm going to start by telling you that Elijah is from the country of the Democratic Republic of Congo. And is that the biggest country in Africa?
It's the second largest.
Second largest country in Africa. It's about a fifth of the size of the United States. So it's not a small country. And Elijah's town is a town of Goma, and it is way on the eastern border, right next to the country of Rwanda. And I'm going to start with something rather strange, but start by telling us a little, Elijah, about your grandmother.
So I grew up in a small village called Miramba near the city of Goma. And so my grandmother, I'd say, is the evangelist to our family. So she's among the women of faith in my village that started a Pentecostal church.
And were there evangelists that came to that area?
So,
or missionaries that she welcomed?
Right. So, like, when missionaries were coming to evangelize, like in Africa, there came a time that they also reached our village, and my grandma and other women and some men, of course, they welcomed these people who were like, oh, we are coming to tell you about Jesus, and we don't have land, but if you accept Jesus and be baptized, we will be coming every like Sunday to like teach you and tell you about Jesus. And my grandma with like other people from my family gave land. So the church in my village is built on the land of my grandparents.
Okay. So that started a heritage. Tell us a little more about your childhood.
So, as I said, I'm Elijah. I was born and raised in a Christian family, in a church. I mean, like, I started going to Sunday school, and from Sunday school, I went to different, like, age group up to the youth. And when I was 16, I became the youth group in our church. So I was leading a small choir, so I could just drum and teach them. And this grandmother and other people were teaching us songs like the songs that like are related to the Bible character. And we could just play like, oh, I will be the Moses, you will be the Abraham, or any other character in the Bible. So at the age of 16, I became the youth leader in our church. And so when I turned 19, I missed my state diploma because when in Congo, before going to college, you have to get your state diploma and you take a state exam, which is not easy. So I failed it, and then they sent me to the city. And in the city, before being sent, my grandma came to our house, and she said, I know your parents are sending you to the city, but remember not to, like, go far from God. Because many people, when they send their kids in the city, or when they go to college, they fall away from God. And my grandma was like, don't do that. We have a great mission. Our mission is also in the city. You can find this name. And please be going to church and pray and keep serving the Lord. Don't forget that. And she was singing the song, God is everywhere. You cannot hide from him. So if you go to the city and you start doing things that we don't do, know that we are not there, but God is watching. So that really touched my life or impacted my life up to now. Wherever I am, I know my parents are not there. My grandmother is is gone, but God is watching every single action, every single step I'm doing. If it is far from Him or closer to Him, He is watching. So there's a song about it, like Mungu ni pahali pote. That's Swahili.
That's, that's an incredible inheritance that you received. Now, your father is very involved with Jesus.
Yeah, my parents are involved in Jesus in the same church. My mom and of course my siblings, but some of my siblings have also left the village because that will happen. It's a small village, you don't have college. So when you have your state diploma or when you graduate from high school, most of the time, if your parents have some money, they will send you to the city for high education. And my two siblings are not in the village, but they are following God, and my parents are still following God in the same church.
By the way, the city of Goma would be, looked to me as though it's about 700,000 people. But in addition to that, there are about 500,000 in refugee camps right near the city also. So that's a significant impact on that area. And what size would your village be?
It's really small, so my wife has been there, and
Like hundreds?
it is 300 like 300 household.
300 households.
Yeah,
So maybe 1,000 people or
Yeah, it would be
or
1,000
something.
people. Yeah.
okay. What language do they speak?
So in my village, they speak. So in Congo, we speak more than 500 dialects, and there are 4 national languages. So in my village, they speak Kihavu, like the first language that they teach to the kids is Kihavu, and that's the language I first learned as my mother tongue. And then when you go to school, they start teaching you in Swahili and French. Swahili is the original language, and French is the official language. So I learned Kihavu as a little kid, then went to school, started learning Swahili and French. And when I went to the city, I started learning English as my 4th language.
So can you say, my wife is beautiful in 4 languages?
So in 4 languages, in Kihavu, I can say omukazi wani alimwinja, that's my mother tongue, and Swahili, muke wangu ni mrembo, and French, ma femme est belle ou jolie, and English, of course, she's beautiful.
So, can anyone claim more than 4 dialects or 4 languages that you're fluent in? I think you win first prize today for the most languages. Pass the mic to your wife. We already know she's beautiful.
I can just sit here. I'm good.
Tell us,
That's all you need to know.
many of us know a lot about your upbringing, but all of us don't. So
Not
tell us
everybody.
a bit.
Okay, well, I'm Courtney. Hi. I have my grandpa sitting right there. Hi, Grandpa. And I have my parents sitting back there, and a lot of my family members right here. So this is my upbringing. Born and raised in Lewis County. Grandparents who brought us up in the Holy Spirit, brought my parents up in the Holy Spirit, brought me up in the Holy Spirit. So I've been following the Lord pretty much all my life. My first real encounter with the Lord, I was kind of a little bit of a lonely kid, I would say. And so when I was around, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, I don't know if Mom would even remember this, but around that time I was worshiping to the Lord once, just alone. And the song, Give Me Your Eyes by Brandon Heath came on. So that song came out in 2008, so I'm assuming it was a little bit later because we were a little bit behind the times. So I'm going to assume it was like 2009 that I was just asking the Lord, like, are you real? Like, do you really, like, are you there? Do you see me? Do you know me? And I just felt like a weight fall on my hands. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, yeah. And I remember just like running down the stairs like so loud and so fast. My mom like, the Lord is real. And she was like, I know, honey, I know. But yeah, that was kind of my first encounter with the Lord. And yeah.
Now, when you told us that the other night, you said that that just kind of settled it. Like that was,
Yeah.
he showed you that, and you didn't need to ask 10 more times
Nope.
if he's real. That
That was it. That was
you
all
were
I needed.
you were all in.
Yep. I think it was easier for me because I was a little lonely. So it just like, he was the person I talked to. And then the one day I was finally just like, am I talking to no one? Like, am I just alone? And then he showed himself to me or revealed himself to me. I was like, okay, I'll be with you for the rest of my life. That's good. Yep.
How did you become acquainted with somebody living in the middle of Africa?
Kind of through my mom.
Actually, let me add something in
Yeah.
there. In 1994, something occurred in the little country of Rwanda right next to them. I say little because in comparison to Congo, Rwanda is a small country. Rwanda had racial tension for years, but that began to be ratcheted up, and you may have heard the people groups Hutu and Tutsi. The Tutsis, T-U-T-Z-I, I think. The Tutsis and the Hutus were two people groups in this country, and power would kind of shift back and forth, and depending what government was in control, one group might have more power and be able to persecute the other one more, and then it would shift, and that one would have more power and persecute. And in 1994, the Hutus basically became powerful enough that during a 100-day period, something happened which is called the Rwanda genocide. And they murdered about 1 million of the Tutsi people group. And some of the Hutus who would have been considered sympathizers or liberal,
Sympathizers.
that had a major impact on, like, your village is approximately how far from the Rwanda border?
So by boat, it's like an hour and a half from Rwanda. So we're closer because, like, in my village, they grew coffee and banana. So we're selling to Rwanda. So it's closer.
Okay. That's your major market to sell your coffee and bananas.
Yeah, and people like who fled the genocide
So,
were
so people
into
are
my village.
fleeing this genocide, this massive killings that are happening, and Rwanda is kind of overrun. I mean, Goma area is kind of overrun with them. What was your grandmother's reaction to that?
So my grandma reaction to that was like, oh, these people are refugees, they don't have anything, so, and they are running for their life. My grandma told like my parents and other people, we can host them. But because the genocide went over the border of Congo, like they kept fighting to Goma City, and my village is around Goma City. So some people pointed that this family is claiming to be Christian, and they are hiding. They're hiding people who fled the genocide of Rwanda, and that was like in 1998. And so I saw my village being looted. My parents were taken for like 3 days. My dad, because they took all the men and all the stuff in my village. Whoever had cows, goats, anything that they could. There was a militia attack in my village. And for 3 days, we didn't know where our parents were. And yeah, my dad came back with other people. They were beaten up. And yeah, of course, in that, we lost like 2 people of the village. So my dad still has scars of how they bound them because of that. And then my grandma said, no matter what they do to us, we will not show where we have hidden these people people that fled the Rwanda genocide. So
See, some others were, if I understand correctly, some others were saying, by hiding these people, you are inviting the violence to come to our village.
yeah,
So if you would just turn the people over,
yeah,
the bad men will go away and we will be safe. And
yeah. But they could be
it
killed.
reminds you of Holocaust stories. And
Yeah.
are you going to turn the Jews over, or are you going to protect them
Yeah.
from their oppressors?
Because
that's-
if my grandma or other people said, let's just say, oh, these people were fleeing from Rwanda, this militia group is called the Mai Mai. They were killing people, and some of these Mai Mai, because of the ritual that they do, they were eating them. That's like Mai Mai cannibalism. And Christians were like, no, we can't do this. We can't see other people killing each other, like killing other people or eating them. So that was very, I was like 7 years and I saw that kind of brutality in my village. But it healed at some point, and these people went back to Rwanda.
So back to the question I asked you, how did you become connected with the guy who lived in the middle of Africa?
Around the time, I'm going to say 13, 14, my sister had been dancing at Light of the World Ballet in Syracuse. And my mom and I spent 2 hours just sitting around Syracuse like, oh, it'd be fun if we could, do something instead of just sit here. So through a series of events, we found a refugee organization that was helping refugees, teaching them how to live in the USA, yada, yada. And so we started volunteering there every Monday night for 2 hours. And that happened 3 years-ish, something like that, until we couldn't anymore. And then at that point, we said we'd love to host refugees. Like, we have a very big place. If we could be of any use, we'd love to come. We'd love to have people come and teach them. And so one of the people that came in 2019 was Elijah's old pastor, Pastor Euclid. Some of you may have met him at different points.
To connect that story,
Yep.
Elijah said that when he was 19, he went to the city of Goma, and he was living there. He followed his grandmother's advice, and he connected to a church. And so that's where you learned to know Euclid, is that right?
So I connected to the church and I became his secretary. And also because I had finished college, they hired me to be someone who could be planning their project in the church for like donors in the USA and in Europe. That what I was doing, and by then I had known how to speak English, write in English, and translate. So I was also helping the church as a community language assistant because they had people coming from Texas, Florida to like do mission in Africa, and I was helping that.
So go ahead. So that's how Euclid then comes to the U.S. on a visitor's visa, and that's who you learned to know.
Yeah. Yeah, he had been in the Hope Print community and then needed a place to stay. So he had been in the U.S. for a little while at that point, but then he came and stayed with us. And so he came to our house, and at that point in my life, I had done quite a few missions, and I knew like I wanted to be in Africa. I wanted to do something in Africa, and I wanted a husband, but I didn't know anyone I could get married to, and I didn't have any connection in Africa. So I was like, I'm just kind of here waiting to see what the Lord is going to do, and was praying all the time, like, can you send me a husband? Send me to a country. Like, open the door. I'm here. I'm willing. And then lo and behold, Euclid comes into our life, and I avoided him for a month. I was like, you have a husband and a country. No, this isn't what I thought. I just had never expected to marry an African. I didn't think that would happen. I had been to Africa. I knew a lot of Africans that wanted to marry me because I was rich. And I was just like, no, I'm good. Thank you. I'm not rich. You would be disappointed. So yeah, I very unlike me. I avoided Euclid for a month. I think I introduced myself to him, but then never had a conversation with him. I didn't ask him anything about his life. I didn't want to know. But then slowly, he was revealing to us that his wife was in the Congo and that she was pregnant and she was going to give birth, and he wasn't there, and it was very hard for him. And so at that point, Alexi and Nelika, my homegirls, I had been telling them, like, you guys have to come on the mission field with me. You have to come on the mission field with me. And so we were all living together at that point, and we heard that story, and we said, we should go be with his wife when she's giving birth, and we should be there for him and be that stand-in. But then COVID happened, so we were not able to go. Yeah, want me to keep going?
Just say a little bit about why didn't Euclid simply go home to be with his wife for the birth?
Yes. So he had come on a visitor visa. He was invited for somebody's wedding, so he was here. But prior to that, he had had run-ins with different rebel groups, different people with high authorities. He was taking children out of rebel groups and putting them into homes, and people were getting very upset about that. So one night they broke into his home and they almost killed him, and so he came to the USA. And then when he got here, he felt like the Lord was saying, like, you're going to stay. Like, this is me protecting you. And so then he became a refugee. So, yeah.
So you said how many years is that now that he has been here in
He
the
has
U.S.?
been here about 6.
About 6 years, trying to get his wife a visa that she and the family could come,
Yep.
and that has not materialized.
Yes, he still has not met his youngest son. Yeah.
So, Euclid's there.
Yep, he was there. He was there, and of course, my mom is kind of my person, and so she knew that I had been praying for an opportunity in Africa. She knew I had been praying for a husband, and she was like, 2 birds, 1 stone. And so she was asking Euclid one day in front of me, like, Euclid, who do you have that my daughter could marry? Why don't you just show us some people? And so he immediately, it wasn't even a second that went by, he immediately pulls out his phone and he's showing us like 4 different gentlemen in the Congo that I could marry. Just take my pick. And I was like so mad. I was like, how dare you guys do this? The Lord is telling me who to marry, not you guys. I'm not picking him off of a cell phone. This is ridiculous. But my mom saw Elijah and his beautiful smile. Babe, smile for everyone. And she said, that guy has a really nice smile. And I said, yes, he does. That was all I said. Yes, he does. The Lord puts it in Elijah's heart to message me. And the next morning, he says, hi, I'm Elijah. I'm from the Congo. And I was like, oh, my gosh. Lord, I am mad at you. Why are you doing this to me? This is not what I thought was going to happen. So that's kind of how that started. Is there anything in
So
there
how
for
long
you?
from then, and you must have answered his text at
I
some
did.
point.
I didn't want to, but I did answer his text. I did. I remember like arguing with the Lord about it, being like, I don't want to talk to this man. And the Lord was like, you're going to be blessed if you do. And I was like, okay. So yes, I sent him a message. I said, hi, I'm Courtney. It's nice to meet you. And let's see, from there, it was about a week. And then he asked me, hey, maybe you should ask the Lord about us, like becoming something someday. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I don't know you. Why are you asking me this? But I kept talking to him, and because it was during COVID, we talked for 8 months. We called each other every weekend. We would text each other every day, getting to know each other. And through those 8 months, there was probably something at least once a week, if not more, that the Lord was like, you're going to marry him. You're going to marry him. You're going to marry him. And so it was very challenging to talk to somebody that I didn't know, who didn't understand my culture, who didn't always understand what I was trying to tell him all the time. It was very challenging in that time to just let myself fall in love and not go to the like, but I ended up just falling in love with you.
You did not go for that birth
I did not.
because of COVID.
Because of COVID.
There was no
it was
travel.
shut down. Yep.
And so then finally the
Yeah.
borders begin to open up.
Yeah, they opened in about, I think it was like September. It was September of 2020 that his border and my border both opened. And we were just kind of waiting around. Like, we were just kind of like, okay, like, we could go, you could come, what are we doing? But we didn't really know. And then finally, one day in November, I just felt like, I don't even remember what it was, but I know that the Lord spoke to me so clearly and was like, you can go. And so I texted him and I was like, so like, just how would you feel if we came in a month? And he was kind of like, ha ha ha, that would be fun. And then we ended up going like a month and a half later.
Okay.
Yeah, in
Who's the
January.
we that went?
Milika, Alexi, and myself.
Okay, the three of you.
Yep. We took off. Yep. So that was actually kind of a cool part of the story for you, babe, because at that point, when there were a couple of testimonies in there, but at one point during our relationship, you were like, I don't think I can do this. You want to share
Why?
that?
Why was that?
Yeah, so during our talks for 8 months, there was like a time I was trying to talk to people that I trust and say, I'm trying to start a relationship with this girl, but she's in the US. People didn't believe me. They were like, this guy is crazy. Like, how is he even starting this? Because of like the family. Like, my family is in the village. My dad is a coffee farmer and owns a small boat that carries people to the city back and forth. And I was just in the city with my young brothers, and they were looking at me like, you don't have anything. If this girl comes to Africa, how will you even take care of her? So they were like discouraging me and not believing. But anytime I was also ready to give up, I read the Bible, and this verse came, anything, things can be like impossible for people, but for God, there is nothing impossible. So that gave me more faith and trusting that this will happen.
Talk about your culture and dowry.
And yeah, that was also a big thing. In my culture, when someone is getting ready to marry, you have to give like 14 goats and 2 cows. And this depends on one family or the other. So if you go to the Zeh family, they have their tradition. They can ask, for my daughter, you will give me $150 for a goat and 2,000 for 2 cows. But you go to another family, it's different. It's like, it's business. Yeah, I can say it's business because you have to ask the price. And I didn't have like that price to give because it started from like 5,000 going up. And I was like, they were, do you have money? And I was like, no, I don't have money. I'm teaching, I'm assisting the church. And the church was not paying me. I was just helping the church. And they were like, he's just crazy. Some people would even say, okay, we stop this conversation and talk about something else. But the Lord reassured me that it's possible. But also I had a promise in 2017 that my wife will be out of Congo. But a
You're
man
saying she would come from
outside
outside.
of the country.
Okay.
But as a young man who's coming from a family that doesn't have money, I was like, maybe she will be from Rwanda because that's the neighboring country. She will be from Burundi. She will be from South Africa because we were planning a mission trip to South Africa. And I didn't know that the Lord has gone beyond Africa.
Beyond Africa.
Yeah, and when she said, oh, we're coming in 1 month, I was like, no, I was supposed to go to the US and meet her there, not her coming to me, because I had a job of $300, and that would be among the luckiest young men to have that kind of $300 a month. It means I was among the luckiest young men. And when she said she's gonna come, I was like, she can't live where I live because I live in a board house around, like in the vicinity of the city. There is security issues. She can't stay here. I can't afford paying a house where it is like green zone, where she can't be kidnapped or be hurt. So I was like, Lord, please, if this is you making this happening, I need money. And a friend of mine called me and said, can you help us for like 2 weeks? And in the 2 weeks, they gave me $900. And I was like, yeah, Lord, you are in this. Because this will help me to take my future like wife to a restaurant or pay something that she can appreciate or pay flowers, all that. Yeah, so so those were two signs that the Lord is making something happen to make the promise of 2017 happen.
So, Courtney, when you left here in December, January?
It was
When
January.
January.
Yep.
How long did you expect to be gone?
We had planned, was it a month? A month. Yep, 1 month.
How long were you gone?
6.
6 months?
Yeah.
And before you came back,
We got married.
you were married.
Yep, it was pretty crazy. It was, let's see, the month that we got there, we got engaged. It was really important that my sister and my cousin be there. So we got engaged that month. And then we were planning a wedding, and we really weren't sure, like, are we going to be in Congo? Are we going to do this in the USA? We don't know. But then just thinking about his family and the fact that they would really never be allowed to come here, we just decided we were going to get married there. So we got married in May.
And I remember that Matt and Tish went over, and Andy and Heather Jennings went with you, I believe. And the wedding happened there. In order to understand their whole situation, you have to understand anarchy. Okay, I'm going to use a comparison of Haiti. I've been to Haiti, I think 3 times, maybe 4. And when I went to Haiti, there was relative peace and there was order. The police were in charge, and the government had its issues. There were corruption issues, but there was relative stability. Since that time, it has all degenerated into chaos. If you've read the story of the missionary group from Christian Aid Mission who went there, you realize that the government has lost enough power that any group of 20 guys that can come up with guns can begin to patrol Turin. And they can extort from anybody in Turin or anybody passing through. And all these groups, a little one here, a little one there, a little one there, they become the ruling entity in that area. And they have no, as a citizen, you lose all your rights, because being able to say, well, I'm an American, doesn't mean anything to them. All they want is they want to use that gun to generate income, because money is power. And that's what has been happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And there are how many militia groups that are patrolling a portion of Congo?
So as for now, it's really, there is a chaos happening. It's worse. For now, the report of the United Nations, they say we have 250 militia groups. We have this major rebel group that has taken over 2 cities, 2 airports, and yeah, it has like taken over like our loyal army. So we have lost these 2 cities, and that's where I come from. And my village is still under the rebel control up to now. And we have this terrorist group in the northern part of the country, which is killing even Christian. I think some people who read news 3 weeks ago, these terrorists came into the church, like the church was gathering and killed more than 37 people. So I have seen villages that I can't go to. My villages for now is in the war zone because the government has no power there. The rebel group is controlling with the city around it. So it's just crazy. It needs prayer to see like peace come back. I would say I have lived. I always say that I'm 2 years older than the war I have lived to see. Because in 1998, I saw the looting of my village. 2002, the assassination of the president. The country went into chaos, and this rebel group, which has become very powerful, started in 2009, took over the city in 2012, and came back again in 2001, and now has become so big.
2021.
2021, it has become so powerful that it's dictating the government what to do. If you don't do this, we take another village, we take another city, we take another town. And that's why my two brothers they have left the country. We also left the country last year because of the chaos that was around us. My wife was not able to go out of the house for like 1 month because I kept telling her, we are not in the USA, please stay inside. If they kidnap you, they may ask $50,000 the next day, or you will go missing, which can also happen to me, but the Lord is protecting us. And
So
thank you for people who
Elijah's
pray for us.
connection to the U.S. then, in their minds, makes him a potential source of money, because they know that if they would capture Elijah, then there are probably people who would pay money to get his release.
Yeah.
So where he used to be just one of the town and he was an unimportant person, now his connection to the U.S. makes him a potential money source. So he's not safe. Courtney, the difference between Elijah and Courtney is that Elijah could maybe put on sunglasses and a hat and walk down the street and not be recognized. Guess what?
Yeah, got it.
Courtney is going to stand out like a white girl in a sea of black people.
I remember the one time we were driving in the car and we got pulled over. And I was saying, I'm sorry, you guys. Like, I know it's because they saw me. Like, I'm sorry. And I was saying, does anybody have a black garbage bag? Like, I'll just hide in it really quick. We were just joking.
Yeah, because when they saw her in the car, and there is like this injustice, whoever has gun has the power to do whatever they want. So if they would ask $5 for the infraction, it would be 50. You can't miss it. If you want me to take you to the office, and if you go to their chief, they will ask more. So that's why the corruption is there, because then if you have money, you have power. If you have guns, you also have power. So and owning guns is illegal, but people still have guns. And then when it's dark, during the night, they just go out, and whoever is found on the road, or if they target a person, they break into the house, like what happened to my pastor, Euclid. They broke into his house, beat him up, and took some money. The same happened to my young brother last year, because we have a ministry in Congo and we give school items. So he went to the village, gave school items to 300 kids that we do give school items to. And when he returned to the city, 1 week later, they came to his house, broke into his house, and Yeah. So when someone grows up in a war-torn zone, you have the survival skills, or you teach how to mitigate the risk. And I had already taught my young brothers, if they break into the house, don't start like yelling because they can shoot at you, but just collaborate. What do you want? Learn their intention as soon as possible. They break into the house because most of them are not coming to kill, but they are coming to
Steal.
take any valuable item you have or money. And that's what happened to him. He gave the phones, the computer. He gave $300 that was in the house, and they were like, "Oh, he's a good young man. Okay, lay down. We don't want to kill you, but thank you." And they left the house.
Geography fact, the Goma is on the shores of a lake called Lake Kivu, Kivu. Lake Kivu is deeper than well, okay, the deepest lake in New York State, of the Finger Lakes anyway, is Seneca Lake, 883 feet in depth. The deepest of the Great Lakes is Superior, 1,300 and some feet deep. Lake Kivu is 1,500. It's a really deep lake, and it's on a ring of volcanoes, and those volcanoes are filling the lake with methane gas, and it's a very dangerous lake to be in. But his village is around the lake a little bit, and so because of the militia groups patrolling the road between his village and Goma, if you want to go to Goma, a water taxi, a boat is the safest way to get to Goma. And your family has a boat, right?
Yeah, my dad has a boat and a motor. So my dad has been doing this for many years, like taking people from my village with their crops, and they go to the city and sell and go back to the village. We
Taking
can't
them back.
use the road because of those militia groups.
Well, Courtney, your dream was to go live in Africa and minister to the African people. You're in the U.S.
I am in the U.S.
and you know that it's not safe
Mhm.
to go live.
Yep.
It's even not safe for the people you would be with
Yeah.
because you would attract danger to them
Mhm.
by being there. Is
Yep.
that hard?
Yes, it's very hard. It's um, it's a very interesting position as an American and as somebody who fears the Lord more than people. It's a very interesting place for me to be in. It's very humbling, and it is not very easy knowing that I'm not. It used to just be myself. I have done missions. It used to just be me. If I was causing danger, it was mostly just to myself, and I didn't really care. And then I got married, and then he was telling me, okay, but it's not just you, it's not just me, it's also my family. And so then it was like, okay, now I have the family. And then I had kids, and then we went, and I was like, okay, so it's not just me and my husband and his family, it's my kids. Oh, okay, and now I have friends, and so it's not just me and my husband and my family and my kids, it's my friends. And so it's just down the line that you have to kind of like really, it's actually hard to be spirit-led because there's always this pressure of who's around you, who's watching you, what's happening, and so yeah, it's a challenge.
You told us an interesting story of when you first came here after your wedding.
Yeah.
You lived at Restoration House,
Hmm.
and tell me about the locks.
Yes, it was very funny. So Elijah grew up always locking the doors. I grew up always not locking the doors. So I remember one time Elijah asked for the key when we were staying with my mom and dad. Asked for the key to our room, and I was just kind of like, what? Okay. And so I went and I asked my mom, hey, Mom, can we have the key? Do we have keys? Can I have the key to the room? And she was like, yeah, we have keys. You could have it. I was like, okay. And then I remember one day that I locked myself out of the room because he had locked it and the locks are backwards and yada, yada. And so I was like, oh, Mom, I need another key. And she was like, why does he lock it? Like, what? We're not going to take anything. Like, I just remember she was just kind of like, and it's just
And that's an
habit.
example
It's
of
just
that cultural difference. If you've
Mhm.
never needed to lock your door,
Mhm.
and yet he's grown up where you lock everything because somebody's going to steal everything you have if you don't lock it up. And we have no concept of the blessing that we live in. We have no concept of what is normal to us and what we've grown up in is so foreign to many people in the world. Somebody tell me what time it is. I left my phone somewhere. 11:47. One thing I want to touch on yet is how do you transition if you love the people of your village of Goma and you know that you cannot go there and minister, and yet your heart is to minister to those people. I'll just short circuit for the sake of time. What the Lord put on their hearts was to begin a ministry. The name of the ministry is One by One Ministries. And that's because you're only one person, and you're only one person. And so you can ask the question, what can we do? And the Lord showed you that one person can minister to one need, and little by little, you can make an impact. Now, one of the things that you talked about is the school. They have been providing a school, providing the ability of children in that village to attend school, because that's a very important part of determining what opportunities are going to come their way, is whether they get any education. And so even that brings with it a danger, because they begin providing resources from here for that school. As soon as people in their local area know that there are resources there, then whose house was it that got broken into? His younger brother's house in the city, in Goma. Because they hear he is connected to that school, he has the resources, therefore we're going to break into his house because there's stuff there that we can steal. And fortunately there wasn't as much there as there could have been, because it had been distributed to the village, to the children. But what'd you say, $300?
So like our distribution is always like $1,500 every year, but he had already bought all the items and had distributed to the village. He still had like $300 for like people that we targeted in the city, because the needy are not only in the village but also in the city. And yeah, so that the only money that they found in the house, and took it, and took his computer and phones, and whatever they found was something worth money. Yeah.
So now that taught you that that's not a safe place to keep any resources.
Yeah, so now what we do is, when we send money, when the money gets in the hands of the people from the bank, they have immediately to go and get items and then start packing, so that we can say, okay, this day we do the distribution. And like providing education to these kids, we're trying to help them not to grow up and become militia leaders, because that will happen. And in Congo, you study, but you are like running in a dead end road. You go to college, finish 5 years, you look for a job, you don't find any job. That's why I said I was among the luckiest young men that went to college, and after college you grab this opportunity of $300. Then when these young men don't have jobs, the chiefs of rebel group and militia will come and say, if you join us, we'll be able to pay you $100 or $200. Or we can target some rich people, or we can take over this village, and everything in that village will give us money. The youth does not have a job. What do? They join the militia group and cause the chaos that has been around. Yeah.
There was a water system that was serving his village and serving people that way, because there were richer people who wanted the water was cut off. So they had no more source of water. So their people are walking to the lake, getting water from the lake, getting water from whatever contaminated source, boiling the water, trying to make it safe. A lot of people are getting sick because the water isn't safe. And one of the things you felt the Lord leading you to do was create a water system that serves your village and some other villages there.
Yeah, so recently we started the project, as he just said. Uh, when I went back to my village last year, I met two elderly on our way going up to my father's house, and I broke in tears. Inside of me, I was like, I know this elderly woman, their kids have gone to the city or they are no longer in the village. She's carrying a jerrycan to go fetch water at a distance of 1 hour and a half to have clean and drinkable water. And I was like, this is so painful. She's old. We used to have water in our village, and now she's walking all this way. I started praying, and the Lord gave me the dream. I saw the women and kids jumping again, saying, "Water is back, water is back." And I shared it with my wife, and she said, "Yeah, we can start doing that." And we started the water project. So grateful, and thank God, water is back in my village, and we are finishing the project this year. When war happened, it stopped it, but last May, we contacted people and said, this is a community project, so talk to those guys in this rebel group that we're not doing anything bad to the community. It's helping the community to have water. And they said, yeah, it's a community project, go ahead. So last May, we started again this project, and it's getting closer to the end.
So they were given permission to use the water pipe system, which had been cut off. And keep in mind, we're in the middle of a Turin water project. Well, that means that water is being piped into every house and meters installed and new pipes and whatever. Their version of a water project means that there's going to be a spigot right in the center of a group of houses so that everybody can walk 10 minutes to get their water instead of walking an hour and a half to get their water. So you're talking a community water source differently than what we're thinking. But they were able to locate a spring up in the hills, put a water tank, collecting the water into that tank, and that tank is providing the pressure that's charging these lines. And now they need to install these distribution points. You said probably 700 is the estimate
Of the household.
per distribution point. So for 700, you could provide that's not the cost of the tank and everything that they've done. Some of that has already been covered, and we could provide how many houses would probably come to one of those distribution points?
So like in my village, they have 300 household,
Okay.
and we will put two taps.
Two taps there.
In
So
the village. To this hill we put one, and the other we put one. So it makes it like 10 to 15-minute walk, get the water, go back to the house. And in the other village, which is a neighboring village, we put another one in there, and they have like 70 household, and the other big one is like 100. But we can do what we can. Instead of walking like an hour and a half, they will have water closer.
I'm not sure. Tony was there at the beginning of the service, and they might have a family reunion today. But if you put a check in the box and mark it for the water project, you think we could install one? You think think we could install 2? It would change somebody's life if we did. Well, we could go for another hour telling you stories of it. I knew some of this, but until we met for supper the other night, I didn't realize how much his home has degenerated into just anarchy is the best word to describe. When anyone who can come up with a gun and have power has control, and there's no government to go to appeal for justice because they've been overrun. And we'll pray for you differently. There's part of your heart that would like to be there, and that's a fascinating thing to ponder. I see that differently because I feel like, why would you abandon your own people if they are in such desperate need? But when going home endangers your people, what do you do?
We're praying. We're praying. And also, like, kind of good news, the U.S. government is now stepping in, saying, guys, you have to go for a ceasefire. So there is a peace agreement principles that was signed here in the U.S. between Rwanda and Congo, and in Qatar there is another peace agreement principle which is being signed between the Congo government and this rebel group which has taken my village and the cities around. So we're praying that, yeah, God can use people that He has given a lot of power to say, stop. It's just a lot. People are dying. Projects are being shut down. Stop this war. And it's possible because it happened in 2012. So we're praying for that. So we can be able to go back. My wife would like to be there now, but I'm like, I'm not taking you to a zone which is controlled by a rebel group.
Sorry, that's just the other cool part of it for us is that when we went back in 2023, his green card was stolen. So we had no choice. We had to be here. So there was no like, can we go? Can't we go? Even now, we can't really, like, you don't really have your green card, so we can't really go, even at this point. So that has been one mercy from the Lord, that He has made it that, like, even if our hearts were wanting to go, that He has said, nope, sorry, like, that door is closed to you. And so that's been really cool. And not only that, but just CCC has been an answer to prayer for us because we love ministry, we love being involved. And yeah, just this year the Lord was like, okay, be involved. I'll open the door for you. And so that's been really special.
Well, recently they felt like the Lord was telling them to tie in and connect to a body of believers. And through a process, the Lord showed them that this was where they were to be for this time. And so you've seen them very regularly for some time now. They were asking the Lord, how can we be involved? They're not of a nature to sit by and watch things happen. They want to be involved in what's happening. And they already had things, I'm just giving a short version of this, they already had things stirring in their heart when Evan announced on the Youth Sunday when he was sharing about the youth ministry that we need someone to step in and to be more involved in the youth ministry. And they had already felt like we are of a mind to get involved, but we don't want to push ourselves into anything. We want to know that the Lord is opening the door, not that we are doing it. So would you ask your husband on the way home that day? You ask if Evan's invitation and saying we need someone, was that enough of an open door?
Oh, it was at church. I was like, can I talk to Evan? Can I talk to Evan? Can I please talk to Evan? And he was like, yes, you can go talk to Evan. So I was like, Evan, please. We want to help. Well, I was very calm, actually. I was like, Evan, if you need help, we would be willing to fill it. And he was like, how? And I was like, however. And then he was like, youth leaders. And we were like, yes.
So Evan and Emily are very excited to be welcoming Courtney and Elijah on board with the youth ministry for this next period of time. And as am I. So, if you want more of the story, ask them. They'll share it with you. Father, I thank you for this morning. I thank you for the way you work things that are impossible for us. They're not for you. Father, only you know 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years, 100 years from now, what are the impacts of Elijah and Courtney and their heart to minister to not only those people, but to everyone that needs your love and your grace and your mercy. Father, we intercede for the whole Goma area and for the whole Congo. Lord, we fight against principalities and powers, not against flesh and blood. Lord, we see the flesh and blood because flesh and blood are carrying the guns. But Father, we pray in the spirit realm that these principalities will be brought down in Jesus' name. Thank you, Father. Just go with each one in this congregation through this week. Lead us into your knowledge, into your will, into your grace. Amen. Thank you, Elijah.